3 packages. The first 2 are Hentai, I believe. Well, on that note, maybe I should be more careful about opening this one up. I say that as if I successfully opened it up and it's not being a piece of crap, of course. Yeah, whoops, fine. Just gotta get that receipt out of the way. DVD version of Lady Does Butler. I do believe there's a Blu-ray version that might have also gotten released. I don't think I've seen it ship. But, whatever. Move that away from the top here. And put this away because I don't want to use scissors on that guy if I can help it. Don't want another styrofoam mess. Yeah. As you can see, they seem to be just increasing the number of things included on these double disc Delights. It actually feels like there's 2 discs in there, but traditionally I don't open those on camera. Partially because you never know what you get underneath the covers, and you know, the main thing we're all here for is this stuff. Okay, that's everything. And so to begin with, we got Ensemble Start. We're going to go under here for some sexy plod. Fail at doing so. There. Oh, this is part 2. This includes 6 exclusive art cards, but we want to see more sexy confetti. Yeah, it's more of a, y'all get to see me do the upkeep on the physical media coming in sort of thing. It's weird, I know. So looking on the back, I see a region A, B. I see an English dub. We have picture drama, textless opening and ending for special features. Whoa, and a loose disc. Don't remember what this anime might even be about, but let's see. We've got postcards. Actually, these are art cards. Something neat about the green ones. I mean, I like the variety of colors. It feels pretty refreshing somehow. Like, it doesn't feel like run-of-the-mill colors somehow. Next up we have Isuca. Maybe that's all it's called. This looks like an Eastern Star discotheque. It's interesting because this doesn't look like, you know, standard old school stuff, like, but they do tend to mop up pretty thoroughly. Seems to be about a girl with a bow, and there's a guy and sometimes 3 other girls. Usually there's less demons involved. Okay, so there's somehow demons involved as well. This is Japanese with English subtitles only, which isn't surprising. Oh geez. Even more differenter art. Oh, that must be her. I was just saying, I don't think we've seen her before, but yeah, she was actually right there the whole time. If she was a snake, she would have ignored me and just slithered off. It's weird because it looks kind of neat. I'm curious. We've got new Getter Robo. Okay, look at that off. Actually, going back here. Oh, interesting. That's English audio, so it's dubbed and subbed. Yay! We've got different art. Yeah, this is... well, it looks more old school, but it's really hard to tell. The disc art could be something newer that... actually, new Getter Robo. I have this on DVD, don't I? I think so. Now I wonder if I actually have it on Blu-ray already, and now I just have it on Blu-ray again. Ooh, Black Clover. Okay, yeah, that is a girl. I was thinking, huh, that's an interesting looking guy. Wait a second. There's a pair down there that suggests something different. It's going to cover some sexy hair. Is that hair? Is that water? I think that's water on her arm. I thought it was her hair. Arms? Teehee. Regions A and B with English dub and blurry camera. Special features. Clips and opening and ending song. Okay. Okay, that's probably the person more involved with all this strange stuff. Oh, yeah, this is Season 3, Part 1. I was just thinking, there's so much of this out now, none of which I've really watched. You know, crawling up there kind of close to all the other, the hentai DVDs here. You know, this is why it's just like, you know, if we're going to have non-hentai anime, pretty sure Cleopatra is not. And I think this was Tezuka. I'm blanking on where I would find that. I thought I saw that on there, but I could be mistaken. I'm not familiar with it. Pretty sure it's been out for a while, but it is what it is. Well, guess I'm going to have to review the footage to make sure, because there was some nipple on the inside there. So, if it was just cut out, then of course that's why. Symphogear, the complete first season. And this is another Discotheque Eastern Star release. Discotheque. Maybe it's not all Eastern Star. I mean, I do remember when Discotheque and Eastern Star seemed like two separate things, and then it's like, now they're both releasing stuff together, but I don't know. Some sort of magical girl battle idol thing? I don't know. Commercials, promos, clean opening and ending. Region A, Japanese with English subtitles only. I don't know. I'm not exactly sure if it's Magical Girl, if there's any actual battling going on. It looks battle-y. Like there's a person in the background there. I guess I'm not sure. Oh well, you keep going. Lupin the Third. The Pursuit of Harimao's Treasure. Okay. Let's see a region A. I see an English dub. We open. It's still same cover on the inside. Okay, what was that? You know what? These stuff. Oh, keeping going. My Hero Academia Heroes Rising. Which I'm guessing is another side story movie. Same on the inside. Oh, interesting. Okay, so this one is Blu-ray DVD. Okay. I was noticing this is region A only. I don't remember if My Hero Academia's normal DVD Blu-ray releases are that, but I guess I can quickly take a peek and yeah, here's Season 4 Part 1, that's Region A. For some reason I didn't think it was, but maybe that makes sense, because maybe this is how Funimation can license it so that they can release it quicker here. Not that I know how new or old this is. Poor Bakugo ended up being the DVD. Yeah, I have to figure out whether or not that's... Oh, interesting. It's a little... I don't know if it shows up, but I can feel that it's a little... Oh, yeah. Let's see if I can do the same thing for the camera. You kind of see that Deku and Bakugan are bumpy. Last but not least, Stand My Hero's Piece of Truth. Let's see some sexy legs. Yeah, I guess. This one's Blu-ray only, so apparently it's off in the corner here where it's Region A. English dub. Recruitment for Justice begins now. Kind of curious what kind of show this is from the studio behind Code Realized Guardian of Rebirth. And unfortunately I didn't watch that. So unfortunately I don't have a point of comparison. It's a very case file-y sort of things, and there's a lot of people there. I'm not showing up too close, clearly at that angle, but I don't know. Anyways, here's this week's anime DVD collection update. So, like last week, I'm not sure that there's much to talk about. The only anime I watched was my Friday friend was back in town, so we finished Goblin Slayer, which, you know, I really like the way it ended. It built up just right. Makes me think there really shouldn't be a second season, but I suppose this gives them room to surprise me with a second season that's actually good. or a fun follow-up, or a different follow-up. I don't know. Because I want to see what these characters do from this point on, but I also feel like where Season 1 was, that was the story of Goblin Slayer, and it ends with a character moment. Like, I guess I don't want to go into big detail, but our main character, who is focused on just the dangers of the hordes of smaller fry that get easily overlooked, well, he overlooked and underestimated. You know, it begins with him kind of opening up and, you know, kind of healing a bit from his trauma that caused him to become the Goblin Slayer. Other people to kind of open up a bit more, be more communal. So there's this kind of, everything kind of comes together from that, and it does escalate in danger as it goes, and so it's like, the problem is you can't keep escalating, because eventually you reach Tengen Toppa Gurren Lagann and you're just throwing galaxies at each other, and you're like, we can't go bigger. Well, they go one bigger, but then after that, bigger doesn't make any sense. There's literally nothing else bigger than Super Tengen Toppa Gurren Lagann, period. Not because there can't be things that are actually bigger, but once you get that big, there's no meaningful comparison that can really be made at that point. And yeah, that's why, you know, I think Mario kind of had the same issue where it was like, oh, we made Super Mario Galaxy, what do we make next? Super Mario Universe? And that was a joke people said, but they're like, nah, we're going on an Odyssey. And I think that was a good move by Nintendo. You just want to say, Mario's on an adventure. We're going to go on an adventure. And it's Mario, so you know there's going to be platforming, but they'll be playing around with new stuff here and there, and new scenery and new things. People give Mario a lot of flack for being the same game, but it really isn't. Just like you can play a plethora of platformers, you know, the reason Mario stays a notable platformer that's a baseline comparison for everything is because it, you know, it just doesn't sit there and say, okay, well, we did platforming right, we don't have to ever do this again. You know, they like to play with it, and, you know, you'll have things. And you'll play Mario Odyssey and say, oh man, I miss the old way that Mario 64 did things, and then they'll re-release Mario 64, and you're like, but I already have it, or something like that. But, you know, the truth of the matter is, Mario 64 is a very different game from Mario Odyssey, and it isn't even necessarily that Odyssey is Mario 64 but better. They kind of have different philosophies behind them. Now, some of that is that Nintendo does play with new mechanics, and Odyssey played with its hat-throwing mechanic in a way that merged very well with a lot of the 3D platforming that Mario does. And it's kind of, you know, they built an entire game based on it, and worked out really well. What was I saying with all this? Oh yeah, basically Goblin Slayer. I would be worried about anything else where, do they try to go even bigger? Do they try to go very different? My hope is they try to go different. But that also means that it might not be the kind of second season that people would like. And I saw that there was confirmation of one or something like that, but... And maybe the manga continues beyond the point where I'm at right now, and there's more to it. And maybe the anime even took what would happen in the manga and very carefully molded it into a good story, character arc, I guess. But yeah, wouldn't. I'm afraid of what a second season will do. It probably won't mess up the first season, but it could make it where, you know, it's just as a franchise, yeah, it had a good first season. I guess we'll have to see. Other than that, you know, time has been spent randomly doing whatever. Phasmophobia is there. I don't remember if I talked about it last week. I'm pretty sure I did, though. And, you know, it's pretty fun. You know, I just still don't play in VR mode because I heard some internet friends playing it yesterday, and even still, it was just like, oh, sounds like some of those same bugs I was complaining about are there. Like the constantly turning in place even though you're not touching any of your controls. It's like, if I'm going to walk down a hallway away from a ghost, I don't want to be turning without me telling it to be turning. So, yeah. I haven't actually done as much VRChat itself. And I don't know if that's a good or bad thing, because it sounded like VRChat did some updates that might have broken some avatars, and they maybe fixed some stuff, and I don't know. It worries me a lot. I know that my avatar is very hit or miss in terms of whether or not people can see my Avatar 3 features, but somebody else was saying that it just seems to be random whether or not people can on any given map. So, I don't know. But my focus has mostly actually been on my VRChat world, which I think I mentioned that I'm working on. And last week I had started working on, I think, the task manager system, and I actually got to really dive into it Friday. Like, I think I had time at the end of the work days last week, and Friday was when I'm like, alright, I got this final piece in place. And then I just spent a long time just working out the bugs. And it's unfortunate because some of the bugs are with Udon itself. So, for those of you who don't know what Udon is, the VRChat devs... So, VRChat exists as an advertising platform for Unity, and the idea is you have people that create Unity worlds and Unity avatars, and you want a mix of that stuff so people are socializing, but the goal is to also get people to be using Unity to do stuff, and I'm pretty sure it's an advertising gimmick where the idea is when all these people are used to using Unity, then when they move on and they're like, oh, I guess I'm going to be doing 3D modeling for such and such company. Unity is what I know. Let's suggest Unity. Or we're going to make games. Let's make them in Unity. And maybe VRChat is also, this is the sorts of things you could do in it. Although probably not quite, because it's trying to have people interact with each other, it kind of needs to limit things. And that's always been the main problem. You want to find that balance between giving people flexibility and creating balance. Because Unity is a game development engine, but you really could do anything you really want to in it, I think. So, you could probably just make like an NES emulator and code it in C# and have it be something that's in Unity, and Unity is just a camera pointed at a thing that renders that NES thing. Or maybe you even go one step further and you make a fake living room with the NES game playing on the NES on the game on the TV or something really cool like that. But as cool as that all is, you don't want people to have so much flexibility that they can shit in everybody else's cornflakes. You want people to be able to get together and socialize. And so for avatars, they kind of originally had this system where they had their humanoid animations to help people, but they don't just give that stuff out, so they kind of make it where you have to opt into their system, I guess, for lack of better words, and basically your avatar's animator gets overridden by theirs, which does all the fancy stuff, and you have an animation controller override to override bits and pieces of it. And it's kind of using some of the Unity systems, but it's also subverting some of it. It's always been weird. And with Avatar 3, what they did was they changed it so that you can actually put animators on there, but they have specific purposes and filter certain things out, and you still can't put arbitrary scripts on your avatar, but now you can actually go between your animator and a menu system they built, so that okay, you have the ability to change parameters on an animator. You still can't run arbitrary scripts, but yeah, that's the point. So for Worlds, I think it's kind of similar, where they've had some things that are designed to help get certain things done, and there's some Unity Store free assets that get some things done, but Udon is an attempt by the VRChat team to introduce a programming language that I think has enough limitations to it that somebody can't write arbitrary C# to just do things that are unexpected. Maybe. Either that, or its goal is to maybe create a visual programming language so that people who aren't used to the ideas of programming could maybe do it that way instead. And my guess is that the visual part of it is the idea, because that's why it's called Udon. You basically put nodes and you put little connectors between them, and they're supposed to look like noodles or something like that. Hence Udon. Udon is a type of Japanese noodle, I think.
It might not be Japanese, but I know in Japan there are udon noodles. So my guess is it's Japanese, but that's the idea. The problem is, so the idea is it's a physical graph, but it compiles into assembly code-like thing that's called actual udon, and then there's something out there that people made called Udon Sharp that compiles C# into the udon assembly so that you can use it raw there. All well and good, but the problem is that there are bugs with the way the graph compiles. And some of them are just like, I guess I expect too much of the system, and others are just that the system's like, yeah, I'm showing you the right thing, you should be able to do this, but no, the compiler just consistently forgets that this one variable exists and instead refers to something else. So everybody ends up with, so like if you loop through a list of Unity game objects looking for a certain property, it'll have this bug sometimes where it just only returns the first one all 8 times, leaving you completely scratching your head and having to find ways to work around this crap. Because there's nothing actually wrong with the graphs you produced, it just does that sometimes. And I think the number one thing that tends to cause it is actually, so we have these concepts in math called one-to-many and many-to-one, which kind of describes udon in a way in that if you have a value, let's say it's the number 5, you could plug that into 5 different places, but you're not going to plug multiple things in there. So if you have the number 5 and the number 3, you're going to plug both of those into different multiple slots. So that's an idea of there's one item that goes to many locations, and it only goes back to the one thing. And then you kind of have the other way around, which again, it doesn't make sense for 5 and 3 to go into the same thing, but it does make sense to say, well, the code path goes here, and this is a branch, so if it's true it does this stuff, and if it's false it goes down here, and then they come back together and they both execute. So you just have this thing that's like, oh, let's say that we detected that this game object is flamboyant. Well, let's change its colors to rainbow, and then have it move towards the player. You know, that would be an example. Because either way you want it moving towards the player, but maybe you want it to just be rainbowy in certain circumstances. Well, it turns out that Udon graph doesn't actually support that as well as you would think, because while it lets you do it, it can forget about these variables, and this is a situation where I've found it is most likely to forget about these variables, which is unfortunate because it means it encourages code duplication. But there is a workaround to it in that custom events, even though they're called events and it kind of suggests there's an event-driven system, they're really, when they're custom events, they're really function calls. So it will kind of stop execution at that send custom event, execute it, and then come back. And so turns out because you can depend on stuff like that, you can actually like have true, execute custom event, false, do stuff, then execute that same custom event. You can have 2 copies of that execute custom event that you know, will both trigger it. So you can do stuff like that to really organize the code and prevent it from getting the graph from getting too noodly, I guess, spaghetti, I guess. But unfortunately, yeah, it encourages code duplication. Conditional ands and conditional ors aren't actually conditional, because you see in Boolean logic, right, if you want to know if A is true or B is true, well, if A is true and B is false, then it's true to say that one of them is true, or at least one of them is true. And if it's B, at least one. If they're both true, at least one of them. Right? And that's a logical OR, where you're looking at the values of both. A conditional OR is basically saying, well, you know, sometimes you know the answer without looking at the second guy. So, for example, if you and your buddies are going to go on a trip, and before you leave, you need to make sure the stove is turned off, you turn to your first one and say, hey Adrian, is the stove turned off? And he said, yes. You don't need to turn to Britta and ask her if the stove is turned off. You already know the stove is turned off. You don't have to ask both people. Likewise, if, you know, conditional and would be if You know, if you're going to a rock concert and everybody has to bring their own ticket, and the driver asks you to find out if we're ready to go, and so you go to Britta first, you ask her, hey, do you have your ticket? She says, oh, no, I don't. You don't have to ask Adrian, because you already know she doesn't have her ticket. We have to stop. It's like, no, not everybody has their tickets, right? So the conditional and conditional or is about not having to ask that second question. And it's used a lot in programming because sometimes you want to condense your checks for arbitrary things into things that make sense. So a really common thing is you want to say, okay, I have this Unity game object, or I have a variable that represents one. So you want to ask the question, is there actually something, is it actually pointed at something? Oh, it's not, then let's not do anything. But if it is, then you want to say, okay, well, let's ask if it's flamboyant. So, you know, you really want to do a conditional or that says, actually you'd want to do a conditional and you want to say the game object is there and it's a flamboyant. So normally if you try to ask if something is flamboyant and there's nothing there you're looking at, your code explodes. Very, very figuratively, but usually it means that code stops running, and that might as well be an explosion, right? So you do want conditional and there, because if it's not there or if it's not flamboyant, you just don't, there's something, you just don't want to do something to it. So you kind of want to do both checks at the same time, because there's a lot more meaning to that. And unfortunately, the way Udon Graph works is it kind of seems to be evaluating both sides of the conditional OR before it goes into the conditional OR, which means when you go in there, it doesn't matter that it's a conditional OR versus a logical OR, it has to check both of them. Or rather, it doesn't check one of them, it just calculates both values and then needlessly says, oh, I guess this first one was true, so I guess we can just assume true. No, it evaluates both, which is completely against the point, and it's unfortunate because these things can pop up out of nowhere. It's really hard to figure out what's in there. Can't blame them. Graph style basically means that you can't really describe where a problem happened, and with programming, the place where a problem happened isn't always the location of the bug. It's just where the bug manifests, especially when you're dealing with things that aren't there that should fucking be there. And there was just a lot of head hitting, and even going to bed last night I was running into a problem, one more problem where, you know, I'm trying to make it where these little dolls just go places and do tasks, and in certain circumstances they would just stop. They would go to a task and stop, and it just turned out I forgot to tell it, oh yeah, when you run this custom event, do it over there. Once I did that, worked perfectly fine. So as far as I know, it's bug free until I find the next bug, but it's working pretty well. And at this point, I'm just really starting to build up the pieces so that the world is becoming alive, and it's getting a lot closer to done. We're not talking about a week away, we are still talking about weeks away as I figure out a couple of other problems. Like I have to figure out this thing where somehow, so like the dolls all exist on everybody's local machines, and what you need is to do stuff over the network so that the dolls have locations that are shared. You have the master that determines where they really are, but those locations need to be updated to everybody else. And that's simple enough. But what I need to do is I need to make it where if any player chooses to have the mirror shown, one of the dolls picks up that task, which means the master has to know that somebody, itself or one of the clients, has selected, oh, I want to show the mirror. And when that happens, the doll picks up the task, flies to the correct location, displays the mirror for everybody. And it's tricky because you can make it where if anybody turns a mirror on, then the task is on, and the doll does it. But it would be nice if everybody turned it off, if the doll said, oh, I guess I'm done being a mirror, I'm going to go do something else. You know, that would actually be pretty cool. And in order to really do that, I have to figure out how to keep track of the fact that players can leave. And maybe they can leave having had the mirror on, and the mirror doesn't know. And I don't have a good answer to that just yet. In fact, I'm kind of assuming all the networking stuff I'm doing right now even works, because I've not really had the capacity to test it properly. Because see, even though I can fire up multiple instances of VRChat for testing on the computer, if I tell it to force non-VR, it just keeps picking up my goddamn VR no matter what. Annoying. And I also have a problem where the 2 items I created that were intended to be picked up and grabbed and moved around are falling through the wall or falling through the world for some reason. I don't know what the fuck I did. Did I disable their colliders? Is it something else I did? So I have stuff to look at, but it's coming along. It's getting more and more polished. It's doing what I want it to do. Now, if it's not doing it as efficiently as I was always hoping it would do, that may be something else that I just need to check, but, you know, it's pretty good. Alright, so that's me babbling for however long I just babbled for. I don't know what this next week's going to be like, especially since we have the presidential elections going on right now. And given how much of a shit show it was 4 years ago and how people seem to have only become more divided since then, I'm kind of expecting this year to disappoint me even more. Which might mean that maybe I'll just get disappointed because I don't get as disappointed, which would be a good thing. But I'm not that positive. So, I hope y'all are able to live through these presidential voting times, and y'all have a nice week.